"It's just money," my brother said with a shrug after stealing my entire life savings. I chose revenge over forgiveness. A year later, he called from across the country. "I've spent my entire life believing blood is thicker than water. Turns out, blood can leave the deepest stains." The morning I discovered my life savings had vanished felt like any other Tuesday. Coffee brewing, toast burning slightly because I was too busy checking emails. Then the notification that changed everything. Balance, $237.42. My chest tightened. My fingers trembled as I refreshed the screen. The same number stared back at me. $237.42, not the $68,943.76 that had been there yesterday. Not the down payment for my first home that I'd spent 7 years saving. Gone. I called the bank immediately, heart pounding, palms slick with sweat. The representative's voice sounded distant as she confirmed my worst fear. "The transfer was authorized yesterday at 3:42 p.m. using your credentials." But I hadn't made any transfers yesterday. I'd been at work presenting quarterly projections to the management team. My mind raced through possibilities: hacking, identity theft, some elaborate banking error. Then I saw the beneficiary name, Marcus Wells, my older brother. My stomach dropped. The room tilted slightly. The phone nearly slipped from my suddenly numb fingers. Marcus and I had opened that account together years ago, an emergency fund when we were still roommates. We'd both kept access even after I moved out and turned it into my savings account. A careless oversight that had cost me everything. I drove to his apartment in a daze. Traffic lights, stop signs, other cars, all blurred. My thoughts scattered in 1,000 different directions, always circling back to one question. Why? Marcus opened his door with that familiar crooked smile. Same dark hair as mine, though he had that deliberately messy look that cost more than a regular haircut. Same eyes, though he held something I couldn't quite place. Satisfaction? Guilt? Neither. His smile faltered when he saw my face. "Nathan, what's wrong? You look like someone died." I pushed past him into the apartment, then stopped, stared, blinked, tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Keys on the counter. New keys attached to a luxury car fob. A brochure for a Porsche 911. The same car I'd spotted in the visitor's parking space downstairs. The realization hit me like a physical blow. My brother had stolen my house down payment to buy himself a sports car. "You took my money." My voice sounded strange, hollow. Marcus's expression shifted, not to shame or remorse, but to that familiar look I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. The look that said he'd been caught but wasn't particularly concerned about it. "Borrowed, Nathan, I borrowed some money. Some money, you took everything I had." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. 7 years of savings, my house down payment, everything. He shrugged, actually shrugged, like I was overreacting about a minor inconvenience. "I need you to transfer it back, now." My hands curled into fists at my sides. "I can't." He gestured toward the window where I could just see the gleaming silver sports car in the parking lot. "It's already spent." "You spent my entire savings on a Porsche without asking me." It was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. "Friend of a friend works at the dealership, major discount." He spoke like he'd done something clever. "I'll pay you back, just be patient." Patient, the word hit me like a slap. I'd been patient my entire life. Patient as Marcus got away with everything growing up. Patient as our parents made excuses for him. Patient as he borrowed money, missed payments, showed up late, left early, made promises he never kept. 7 years of careful saving. Of brown bag lunches and roommates I couldn't stand. Of saying no to vacations and concerts and nights out. All gone because Marcus wanted a new toy. "You're paying me back every cent today." I pulled out my phone, hands shaking. "Or I'm calling the police and reporting theft." That got his attention. His expression hardened. "You wouldn't do that to your own brother. Try me." For a moment I thought he might take me seriously. Then he laughed, actually laughed. "Nathan, be realistic. Mom and Dad would never forgive you. And for what? It's just money." "Just money, my dreams of home ownership, my years of sacrifice, just money. Give me your keys." I held out my hand. "To what? The car? No way." He backed up a step. "Look, I'll set up a payment plan or something. I'm good for it, you know that." But I didn't know that. What I knew was that Marcus had never held a job longer than 8 months, that he'd been borrowing from our parents for years, that his credit was so bad he couldn't get a loan for a toy yacht, let alone a Porsche. "I'm taking the car until you pay me back." "Not happening." His voice took on that edge I remembered from childhood arguments, the tone that usually preceded him running to our parents, spinning a story that somehow made me the villain. My phone rang. A glance at the screen confirmed my suspicions. Mom. Of course, Marcus had called her first, had probably painted himself as the victim of his unreasonable little brother. I declined the call and looked back at Marcus. This isn't going away. I want my money back, all of it. Or what? His sneer was all too familiar. You'll tattle to Mom and Dad. They'll take my side. They always do. He was right, and we both knew it. Growing up, Marcus could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. His failing grades were the teacher's fault. His fender bender was due to poor street design. His firing from 3 consecutive jobs was because his bosses didn't appreciate his creativity. Even now, at 34 and 31, nothing had changed. Marcus was still their golden child. Their firstborn, the charming one with so much potential. My phone rang again. Dad this time. I declined that call too. I'm not involving them, I said. This is between you and me. Then we're good. Marcus relaxed visibly. I'll pay you back when I can, promise. I left without another word. What was the point? My brother had stolen my life savings, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it without tearing the family apart. Or so I thought. Driving home, something shifted inside me. A lifetime of making excuses for Marcus, of cleaning up his messes, of being the reasonable one, the responsible one, the one who forgave and forgot and kept the peace. I was done. If Marcus wouldn't give me my money back, I'd find another way to make things even. Not immediately, not obviously, but thoroughly. I'd make him pay. The next few days passed in a blur of parental phone calls and text messages. The pattern was as predictable as it was infuriating. First came the minimizing. It's just a misunderstanding between brothers, Mom insisted. Marcus would never steal from you. Then the excuses. Your brother is going through a rough time, Dad explained. That job fell through and he needed a win. Finally, the guilt trips. Family helps family, Nathan. You've always been the sensible one, the stable one. Can't you find it in your heart to give your brother some time? I let them talk. Listened to their justifications and pleas. Responded with non-committal murmurs, all while planning my next moves. Marcus had taken everything from me in one calculated swipe. I would take everything from him piece by piece. I started with research, discreet calls, online searches, careful questions to mutual acquaintances, building a comprehensive picture of my brother's life, his finances, his habits, his vulnerabilities. What I found confirmed what I'd long suspected. Marcus was barely treading water financially. The Porsche purchase had been spectacularly irresponsible even by his standards. Behind on rent for 3 months, credit cards maxed out, a payday loan with astronomical interest, and now car payments he couldn't possibly afford. My brother was a house of cards waiting for a gentle breeze. I would be a hurricane. The first domino fell 2 weeks after the theft. An anonymous tip to Marcus's insurance company about certain creative aspects of his application. Specifically, the address he claimed to live at our parents' suburban home rather than his actual downtown apartment. The difference in premiums was substantial. His policy was canceled within days. The timing couldn't have been better. Marcus had been pulled over for speeding in his new Porsche just hours before the cancellation took effect. The resulting ticket and fine for driving without insurance were just the beginning. The second domino was his apartment. An email to his landlord detailing the unauthorized pet snake Marcus kept hidden during inspections. The resulting emergency inspection revealed not just the snake but substantial damage to the apartment and evidence of smoking indoors. Both violations of his lease agreement. Notice of eviction followed swiftly. The third domino was the most satisfying. An anonymous report to the financing company about potential fraud in Marcus's loan application. Turns out, Marcus had been less than truthful about his employment status and income. The company launched an investigation, put a freeze on the account, accelerated the payment schedule. Within a month, Marcus's carefully constructed facade was crumbling, each new disaster seemingly unrelated to the others, just an incredible streak of bad luck. My phone rang constantly those weeks. Marcus, Mom, Dad, I let most calls go to voicemail, responded with brief texts when necessary, kept my distance both physically and emotionally. I was not prepared, however, for Marcus showing up at my door at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night. He looked terrible, hair unwashed, eyes bloodshot, That expensive designer stubble now just regular unshaven scruff. I need your help. No greeting, no pleasantries, just desperation. I considered closing the door in his face. Instead, I stepped aside and let him in. My apartment felt smaller with him in it. His restless energy filled the space as he paced from living room to kitchen and back again. Everything's falling apart, he said finally. It's like the universe is conspiring against me. Not the universe, just your little brother. What do you need? I kept my voice neutral. Money. He stopped packing to look at me directly. Just enough to get caught up on a few things, the car payment, the insurance, a deposit on a new place. The audacity was breathtaking. He'd stolen my house down payment, and now he wanted more. I don't have money to give you, Marcus. You took it all, remember? He winced at that, the first sign of something resembling remorse I'd seen from him. I know, and I feel terrible about that, truly. He ran a hand through his greasy hair. But I'm desperate here. They're going to repossess the car. Sell it then? I can't. His voice rose with frustration. I'm underwater on it already, and without it I can't get to work. The work you lied about having on your loan application. He froze, stared at me with a new wariness in his eyes. How did you know about that? I shrugged. Lucky guess. Nathan, he took a step toward me. Have you been doing things, making calls? I don't know what you're talking about. His face darkened. You have, haven't you? You've been sabotaging me, your own brother. Like you sabotaged me by stealing my life savings. I kept my voice calm, matter of fact. That was different. I needed that money. And I needed it too, for my house, the one I've been saving for since I was 24. He dismissed this with an impatient wave. You can save up again. You're good with money, always have been. The casual disregard for my years of sacrifice ignited something cold and hard inside me. Get out, what? Get out of my apartment, now, he blinked, momentarily thrown by my tone. Nathan, be reasonable, we need to figure this out together. There's nothing to figure out, you stole from me, you're facing the consequences. So you admit it, his voice rose. You've been behind all this. I said nothing, just walked to the door and opened it. Marcus stared at me for a long moment. I saw the calculations happening behind his eyes, the realizations, the connections, then something new I'd never seen directed at me before. Fear. You've changed, he said quietly. No, I just stopped putting up with your bullshit. He left without another word. The door closed behind him with a soft click that felt somehow more final than a slam would have. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. The next morning brought a transfer notification from my bank, $15,000 from Marcus Wells, less than a quarter of what he'd taken, but a start. The text message that followed was brief. Call off your dogs. I didn't respond, didn't call anyone, just watched and waited. 3 days later, another transfer, $12,000 this time. The text that followed was longer, more desperate. I had to take out a personal loan at 22% interest. My credit is shot. Please stop whatever you're doing. I'm trying to make this right. Still, I did nothing, said nothing. Marcus had taken everything from me in one go. His repayment would come in painful installments. The third transfer came a week later, $20,000, nearly half the remaining balance. No text this time. Instead, a visit from our parents. They arrived unannounced on a Sunday afternoon. Mom with that pinched look that meant she'd been crying. Dad with the stern expression he'd perfected during our childhood. I let them in, offered coffee, sat across from them at my small dining table and waited for the lecture I knew was coming. Your brother is in serious trouble, Dad began without preamble. I'm aware. He's being evicted. His car was repossessed. His bank accounts are frozen. Mom's voice trembled slightly. He had to borrow money at a terrible rate to pay you back. He stole my life savings, I reminded her gently. Actions have consequences. But the things that have been happening to him? She glanced at Dad uncertainly. Marcus thinks you're behind it all. I said nothing, just sipped my coffee and held her gaze steadily. Son, Dad leaned forward, whatever you're doing, it needs to stop. Marcus has learned his lesson. He's paying you back. Isn't that enough? When I have my full $68,943.76 back, it will be enough. He doesn't have that kind of money. Mom's voice rose in distress. He's had to move back in with us. He lost his job because he couldn't get to work without his car. That sounds very difficult for him. Dad's face reddened. This isn't you, Nathan, this vindictiveness, this cruelty. And stealing from family, is that who Marcus is? The question hung in the air between us. Neither of them had an answer. He made a mistake, Mom said finally, A terrible mistake, but he's your brother. Yes, he is. I set my coffee cup down carefully. And when he returns everything he took from me, we can talk about moving forward. They left shortly after, disappointed, confused. For perhaps the first time in our lives, they couldn't reconcile what was happening with their understanding of their sons. The golden child had tarnished. The reliable one had an edge they'd never seen before. The final transfer came 3 days later. The remaining balance plus $943.82 in interest. I stared at the notification for a long time. Satisfaction mixed with something else. Something that felt uncomfortably like regret. Not for what I'd done. Marcus had deserved every bit of it, but for what it revealed about my family, about the brother who could steal from me without a second thought, about the parents who would defend him regardless, about the person I'd had to become to protect myself from the people who should have protected me. The doorbell rang later that evening. Marcus again, but different this time. Something wild in his eyes, something dangerous. "You got what you wanted." His words slurred slightly. The smell of whiskey hung around him like cologne. "Happy now?" I started to close the door. He slammed a hand against it, forcing it open. I had to beg, plead, take out loans I'll never be able to repay. His voice rose with each word. "And for what? So you could get revenge? So I could get back what was mine?" "You've ruined me." The words exploded from him. Spittle flew from his lips. "My credit is destroyed, my reputation, everything. You did that yourself when you stole from me." He lunged forward suddenly, grabbing my shirt, pushing me back into the apartment. "You self-righteous prick." His face was inches from mine. "You've always been jealous of me, always wanted what I had." I twisted away from his grip. "What you had, you've never had anything that wasn't given to you or taken from someone else." He swung wildly, his fist connected with my jaw. Pain bloomed bright and sharp. I stumbled back, tasted blood. Saw the moment satisfaction replaced rage in his eyes. That was the final straw. I called the police. Marcus was arrested for assault and trespassing. His blood alcohol level well above the legal limit. The damage to my apartment door and the bruise forming on my jaw were evidence enough. Our parents bailaid him out the next morning, called me immediately after. "He's your brother." Mom's voice broke on the words. "How could you press charges against your own brother? The same way he could steal my money, the same way he could show up drunk at my door and attack me. He's facing jail time, Nathan." Dad's voice now, hard with disapproval. "Is that what you want?" What I wanted was a family that didn't make excuses for theft and violence. What I wanted was parents who recognized right from wrong even when it was their favorite child in the wrong. What I wanted wasn't possible. "I'm not dropping the charges." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken accusations, with disappointment, with the shifting of familial tectonic plates. "Then I don't know who you are anymore," Mom said finally. "This isn't how we raised you. Maybe that's the problem." I ended the call, sat in the silence of my apartment. My jaw throbbed dully, a physical reminder of what my brother was capable of, what my family was capable of. Marcus took a plea deal: probation, community service, mandatory anger management classes, no jail time despite his priors, despite the evidence, despite everything. Our parents were relieved, grateful. They thanked the judge, the prosecutor, everyone except me. I used my returned savings to make an offer on a small 2-bedroom house. Nothing fancy, but mine, all mine, no joint accounts, no shared access, no one to drain my funds or break down my door. The closing date was set for exactly 1 year after Marcus had stolen my money. A fitting end to the most educational year of my life. Marcus moved back in with our parents, lost his license due to the DUI, defaulted on his loans, filed for bankruptcy, called me repeatedly during those first weeks, messages ranging from tearful apologies to venomous threats. I blocked his number. Our parents continued their campaign of guilt and reconciliation, weekly calls, occasional text messages, always the same theme. "He's your brother. Family forgives. Blood is thicker than water." I let them talk, responded politely but briefly, maintained physical and emotional distance. The day I signed the closing documents on my house was sunny, bright, full of promise. I sat at the closing table, pen in hand, and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. My phone buzzed with a text as I was walking to my car afterward. "Mom, Marcus is really struggling. He's talking about moving across the country for a fresh start. Please call him before it's too late." Too late for what she didn't specify. Too late to reconcile. Too late to forgive. Too late to fall back into the same dysfunctional patterns that had defined our relationship for 31 years. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without responding. Drove to my new house with the windows down and music playing. The empty rooms echoed with possibility, with independence, with hard-won security. I spent that night on an air mattress in what would become my bedroom, staring at the ceiling, thinking about family, about consequences, about the person I'd become over the past year. Harder, certainly, less forgiving, but also more honest, more real, less willing to sacrifice myself on the altar of family harmony. My phone rang around midnight. Marcus. I'd unblocked his number earlier that day, though I wasn't sure why. I answered, said nothing, just listened to his breathing on the other end. I'm sorry, his voice was different, quieter, more subdued than I'd ever heard it. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I said nothing. I've never been good with money, with responsibility, with anything, really. He gave a humorless laugh. But that's no excuse. What I did to you was unforgivable. Still, I remained silent. I'm moving to Seattle next week. Job opportunity, probably my last chance to get my life together. He paused. I don't expect you to care. I just wanted to tell you myself instead of you hearing it from Mom and Dad. I thought about all the things I could say, all the hurt and anger and resentment built up over a lifetime, all the ways he'd failed me as a brother, all the ways our parents had failed us both. In the end, I said the only thing that mattered. I hope you find what you're looking for, Marcus. You too, Nathan. A pause, though I think maybe you already have. The call ended. I stared at the phone for a long time afterward, wondering if this was a new beginning or just another manipulation, wondering if it mattered either way. Marcus left for Seattle as planned. Our parents were devastated, called me more frequently, visited my new house despite my reluctance, always with updates about Marcus, his new job, his new apartment, his new life. I listened, nodded, offered appropriate responses, but kept my distance. Some wounds heal, some don't. Some just become part of who you are. I built a life in my new house, made friends with neighbors, dated occasionally, focused on my career, found a kind of peace I hadn't known was possible. The betrayal never fully faded. Neither did the knowledge that my family would always choose Marcus over me. But those truths no longer defined my days, no longer kept me awake at night. They were just facts, like the color of my eyes or the sound of my voice, parts of me but not all of me. 1 year after Marcus moved to Seattle, a package arrived at my door. No return address, but the postmark gave it away. Inside was a check for $20,000 and a simple note. The interest I owe you, thanks for the wake-up call. I deposited the check, half expecting it to bounce. It didn't. Some wounds heal if you give them enough time. Some relationships mend if you maintain enough distance. Some lessons stick if they cost enough to learn. But blood still stains, even when it dries, even when you can no longer see it. It leaves a mark that never fully washes away.